I'm Dana Moriello, and you're listening to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses about how they made their wild ideas happen. Today, we're talking to Kyle Bergman, who started Swoveralls. Now, here's the wild idea. Reimagine overalls as the ultimate comfort wear for adults. Enter the sweatpant overall. I was excited to talk to Kyle because one, I'm a massive overall fan. Two, he's a fellow NYU professor. And three, Kyle balanced more hustles simultaneously than just about any entrepreneur I have ever met. When he started Swoveralls, he was getting his MBA at NYU. He was working a full-time job at Birchbox. He was also a fitness instructor at Orange Theory, and he was training for triathlons. I was just curious how he thought about balancing this incredibly rich and robust portfolio of things. We're going to talk about three decisions along his journey. First, the decision to start Swoveralls. Second, the decision to quit his day job, and he has a very hot take about that I want you to look out for. And third, the decision to sell Swoveralls. It was recently acquired. Enjoy the conversation. I understand that at the moment when you got the inspiration for Swoveralls, your plate, from my perspective, was already pretty darn full. You were a buyer at Birchbox, you were a trainer at Orange Theory, you were a part-time MBA at Stern. Were you looking for something to add to your plate or to replace, or was this a lightning strike out of the blue?
It was something that had been within the entrepreneurial electron cloud that is my brain for a little time at that point. In 2015, while I was still at Bloomingdale's, a dear friend of mine, Helena Hay, sent me a BuzzFeed article about sweatpant overalls. And it was at that point where I thought, wow, I love overalls, which is why Helena sent it to me. And so the idea was always kind of around there. And then when the rubber met the road, two things happened almost simultaneously or within like 30 days of each other. I was taking Professor Robert Siemens' strategy class at NYU, and he just kind of mentioned offhand about Google's free tool called the Keyword Search Planner. And I just typed in sweatpant overalls in Google Keyword Search Planner, and lo and behold, around 500 people a month were Googling sweatpant overalls just like me. Simultaneously, my then girlfriend, now wife, Elizabeth, was telling me about how her ex-boyfriend had started a FBA business selling Christmas tree lights. And I thought,
FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, if those are not familiar.
Thank you. Yes, Fulfillment by Amazon. And so I thought, what a great business school project. I'm going to find sweatpant overalls and have this like passive revenue side hustle thing through FBA.
Yeah, and you said class project. Did you start this as a class project, or you meant just while you were in school you were exploring?
While I was in school, it was not a part of any specific class project. And I think what you just exposed in a good way was a white lie I was telling to myself about how I could rationalize using a little bit of my student loan money.
Incredibly creative use of capital. You deployed part of your student loan to be able to start this, which I have talked to people who've done all sorts of creative things. I have not heard that one yet, so hats off to you for finding a way to make it happen and being scrappy with resources. So it seems like you've had this entrepreneurial bent for a long time. I know you started your first business in college, entrepreneurial projects while you're at Bloomingdale's. Did you envision that when you went to get your MBA that your next step would be starting a business?
Yes. I didn't know what it was going to be. Getting my MBA was and has continued to be a hedge. The hedge that, I could always go back and be some sort of director somewhere if, shit really hits the fan, which luckily it hasn't so far.
You wanted to start a business when you went to get your MBA. Did you have in mind a set of personal goals for what this business should be, a particular size or industry that you were kind of matching Swoveralls to see if it was a fit with?
No, I did not. My brain, for better or worse, does not work that linearly or methodically. I'm going to kind of shoot from the hip, and I'm going to make plays, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to be authentic. I believe that things have a way of working themselves out if you are true to yourself and you show up and you work hard.
So since you have this mentality of you're shooting from the hip, you're a hustler, you have many things going on, I have to imagine that Swoveralls wasn't the only idea that you had for a business that you could start. Were you weighing this against other opportunities at the time?
I wasn't necessarily weighing it against other opportunities. I was doing the other opportunities as well. One example is it's February 2020. The world is shutting down. I get furloughed like every other fitness professional from their job. At that point, I was coaching between 5 and 8 Orange Theory classes a week. Really an exciting kind of alter ego of my life. Fitness is a really important part of my life, and I've found a lot of energy in helping people realize what their fitness potential is. When you're a group fitness instructor, you are on a mic, you get to play awesome EDM music, and you're counting down from 3 a lot. 3, 2, 1, go. And
You're an entertainer. You're really an entertainer as a fitness instructor also.
Exactly. And I think my mom would say since I was little, there's like these home videos of me dancing just in my whitey tighties. Like after dinner, apparently I would be like, Mom, Dad, watch me. I guess it was scratching a little bit of that itch. Anyways, the world shuts down, and me and 2 of my friends start Sweat from Home. We raise about $300,000 to go up against the Peloton of the world. Almost overnight, we were coaching 60 group fitness classes a week on Zoom to hundreds of people. Swoveralls was also having a moment because overnight, everyone's unofficial work from home outfit could be sweatpant overalls. And
Wait, so back up in the timeline here. I just want to understand because there's so many things. It's almost hard for my brain to compute. They're all happening at exactly the same time. So am I correct? You are getting your MBA, you're running Swoveralls, you are also a fitness instructor, and then you add this business of fitness from home. All of those are at the same time?
Yes, there was a time in my life where I would get up at 4. I would go to Orange Theory, coach 3 classes, take the train uptown to Birchbox, 28th and Park, talk about how important it is to use moisturizer for 8 hours, get as many samples as I could in the box, then take the 6 train down to Astor Place and walk across and go to class. And that was a typical day for me, and I loved it. Yeah.
And then post-graduation, your day, you lost the school part of your day, but you're adding in Swoveralls, you're keeping Orange Theory, and then at one point you're also adding in doing the Sweat from Home. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I want to hear more about this philosophy of how full you think why you keep your plate so full at all times. I imagine there's competing philosophies, right? Of intense focus on one thing to do it well versus many reasons to diversify. How did you think about it?
I'm going to be honest with you, Dana. I'd say every 6 months or so, I burn out and I crash and I get really upset at myself for saying yes too often and feeling overwhelmed and promising myself that I will never say yes to another opportunity again, and I'm just going to focus. And then that goes away after a couple days, and I get my mojo back, and I get back into a rhythm. I'm not a perfectionist, and so I've been able to move fast and do a lot of different things because I love to say yes. Because 80% is good enough for me, I look really effective because I don't cross every T and dot every I. I don't need to.
I would imagine that one of the dangers of having a plate that's very, very full is then when the next thing comes along that you want to say yes to, your plate's so full you can't say yes to that also if there's no kind of extra room. How do you navigate that? Because I imagine there's so many opportunities you want to do all the time.
The interesting thing that happens when that occurs, and it does happen, is I actually come at it from a place of leverage. In classic negotiating techniques, there's this acronym BATNA. Best alternative for a negotiated agreement. To really be an effective negotiator, you have to have a really strong best alternative. And when my plate is overflowing, there's inevitably something that isn't filling my cup energy-wise as much as the other thing. And so I have leverage, whether it's compensatory or in some other way, for me to say, hey, now there's too much other good stuff happening. I also want to, do right by the people that maybe I've invested in, or if it's a project, some of the things are personal and I just sunset it for myself.
I hear in what you said, there's no magic here. It's not like you have more than 24 hours in a day and the rest of us just have 24. And so that's what you're accessing is those secret hours. It sounds like from what you said, you're very conscious about evaluating what's on your plate at all times and understanding what's filling your cup. So what I hear in that is also knowing what does fill your cup and what doesn't. You have to be very in touch with your values and what's important to you to know what that is. And it sounds like you're comfortable with taking things off when they're not to make room for others. Did I get that right?
Yes, I've become a person within a lot of people's lives who they want to bring in to a project. And maybe it's because they look at me as a marketer and a storyteller, and maybe it's because they know that I'm almost always going to be game to at least take the meeting, or at least let's see how it goes. Let's test it out. Let's just launch it and see. Like, Dana, if you were to say, Kyle, I have this idea, what do you think about it? Can I get like a half hour of your time? And I will always, anyone. And so if you're listening to this and you want to pitch me or you want to ask me something, I will give you I want to reward initiative. I think that's what I'm doing. And some people now have really exciting businesses that they've started that I've been lucky to be a part of because they sent me a DM on LinkedIn and said, hey, can I talk to you about this thing? And I've not only encouraged them, I've been their first customer.
That's a really interesting phrase. You want to reward initiative. And I would venture to say that that's a common human trait that we admire when others put themselves out there and when they take initiative to do something. And so consciously or subconsciously, we want to reward that. I want to take it back for a second. So I like to structure this around key decisions. And we talked a lot about that first decision, the inspiration to start Swoveralls. Right? You had this stroke of inspiration when you saw a product out in the world that wasn't quite right. You saw that there was demand out there. You had the itch to be an entrepreneur and the tools existed for you to do it in a scrappy way. It sounds like those puzzle pieces come together and Swoveralls launches out into the world. When you first launch it, just to make sure we get the complete arc of that story, what is your goal for what it can become and what you can become as its founder?
At the time, brands like Away Luggage, Allbirds, Outdoor Voices are all really having a moment, getting 8 and 9 figure valuations, raising a ton of money from VC based off of top line growth. And so I think for me, although I never put a specific number to it, and I think if I had, the Swoveralls project may have never seen the light of day. It may have never reached this promised land of getting acquired. And so for me, it was like Swoveralls being able to provide me with enough money that I could have freedom of time. And freedom of time you can only achieve through financial freedom, I think. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying I just wanted to get rich. I wanted to get to like $10 million, I guess. Dana was like, I want 10 million. That would have been great. So that's kind of where the sky in the pie thing that I was looking for.
We've talked about analytical versus feeling parts of your brain. Were you analytically saying, this is how Swoveralls is going to get me to 10 million? Or was it more, I'm a hustler, I'm just going to figure out how this is going to get me there?
I'm a hustler, I'm just going to figure out how it's going to get there. It was so myopic. It's like I looked out the window and saw it was a sunny day, and I was like, I'm going to go to the beach. Like that would, like me using Google's keyword search planner to see that 500 people a month are Googling sweatpant overalls, and then like to incorporate a company the next day was so like nowadays when I look at a business opportunity, I'm creating spreadsheets. I'm saying, look, if we don't get like $12 cost to acquire a customer within 7 days, we're just shutting this down because it's not worth it. It's not going to happen. That level of, that type of thinking didn't exist early, and that ignorance is bliss, and I think a blessing for early founders.
That's a really, really interesting difference. So what made you change the way that you approach things to be that much more analytical now in your new ventures?
As I sit here right now in front of you, 38 years old, been an entrepreneur now for coming up on 16 years. I've been influenced by a really bright guy recently. His name's Sonny Bird, and he said to me, I only participate in things that I naturally have energy towards, that I feel like there's natural momentum to. Here is an idea that I explored and kind of dropped off because it didn't fit within the plate right now. There is a company out there in the world in the towing marketing business. This is such a niche thing that you would never think about. They're making over $20 million a year creating websites and marketing services for towing companies specifically, and the websites that they make for the towing companies are not good. And so if someone wants to make a better for you towing website for $10 a month, there's probably an exciting opportunity there, and I encourage someone to just explore that. Or my local pediatrician, their website is trash. I made them a new one. They had no interest in it, and I said, fine, just take care of my kids. But that's another thing. It's like this. Those are some of the things that I've been distracted by lately.
The biggest theme that I hear come through from that is what I would call the idea of idea abundance, right? You are somebody who believes that there are a plethora of ideas out there and you will find them. And so you can act on things, but you can also say no to things because you know there's another idea right around the corner. You had this one, but I have no doubt that by the end of the day, you'll have another idea. And that, I think, makes you a better decision maker and a better actor when you believe that ideas are abundant and not limited. You've teased a few times this acquisition, and I want to make sure we talk about that, but there's one decision between starting an acquisition that I want to make sure we highlight, which is the quit your day job moment. How did you eventually decide, that full-time job is the one that I'm going to take off the plate to focus on Swoveralls?
To put like a hard line in the sand, let's call when I left W-2 land and became a 1099. Maybe that's so.
I like that. I like that.
So we, going back, I'm at Birchbox. We talked about waking up early, coaching at Orange Theory, going to Birchbox, then going to business school. There was a time at Birchbox when Swoveralls started to get a lot of traction. And I was sitting in Birchbox meetings and getting an email that like an article on Thrillist had just been posted about Swoveralls. And my colleagues at Birchbox, rightfully so, were getting frustrated with me and actually going to HR and saying, Kyle is fulfilling Swoveralls orders, and we're supposed to be talking about facial cleansing strategy with Kiehl's or something. And I actually entered an amicable split with Birchbox where we said, hey, Kyle, you're going to migrate into a consulting role for about 3 months, and then you're going to leave Birchbox. Katya, one of the co-founders of Birchbox, was so encouraging the entire time, knew about Swoveralls. I did not hide it. And so I left Birchbox, went full-time at NYU. And then at that point, I was contracting for Tough Mudder, RIP, was coaching, taking more classes at Orange Theory, and then like focusing on Swoveralls, but I still wasn't paying myself from Swoveralls. A year and a half later, I was given a great opportunity to become an adjunct at NYU, which was really cool. So that was helping pay the bills. Became the general manager and head coach at Mile High Run Club, was coaching at Flywheel Sports, also RIP, doing consulting for other brands. I didn't start paying myself from Swoveralls until this past year when it got acquired. In 2019 is when I was like, I'm going to basically become a starving artist, become the proverbial barista in order to make it in Hollywood. That's when it started. Leaving your day job doesn't mean that you have to suck the money out of whatever your company is that you're building. You can do other things, especially never more in human history with AI can you still have a profound impact on the business that you're building, have super high leverage, and get someone else to pay you for something else that doesn't take as much time.
Yes, that's such a good reminder that it's not that black and white. It's not just full-time W-2 day job, quit full-time in your startup. There is this really interesting middle ground that has a lot of advantages of hustling and doing all these side gigs. It sounds like that was, financial incentive. It's paying your salary, but also it was filling your cup, to use your language, that you were enjoying those other things as well while you were building Swoveralls. That's
Yes.
a really great reminder. Now, I don't want to keep kicking the can. I want to get there to this big reveal. You said that you have sold Swoveralls. What is the story there?
Building and bootstrapping an e-commerce company is equivalent to jumping off of a diving board and inventing water on the way down. And I have been incredibly fortunate to have jumped off that diving board more times than I can count and inventing water on the way down, whether it be through being on Shark Tank, whether it be through going viral on TikTok, and I'll also be honest, sometimes water doesn't show up and I splat on the cement floor of the pool and I have to get myself up and crawl back up. And in July of 2024, I jumped off the diving board and I knew that there wasn't going to be water down there. I had placed a big order with our suppliers. I had mismanaged cash flow. In February of that year, we had kept our Meta advertising running full throttle when we were really sold out. I saw the end was near. Swoveralls was, for lack of a better term, in a distressed standpoint. My friend Howie, who is the founder and owner of a brand called Dude Robe, the comfiest robes for dudes, had entered into an agreement with a really great family office in New York City a couple years before, and things were going well. He introduced me to these folks, and they looked at the business and said, so it's our understanding, Kyle, that you're basically a one-man band, and you've created a marketing engine that sells sweatpant overalls, which is more or less what I had done. You know, Swoveralls, from a return on ad spend standpoint and the storytelling that we do, is a quirky brand that does a good job of telling that narrative. But where I kept getting in trouble was cost of goods. As a small brand, it's really hard to capitalize on economies of scale. And so I entered into an agreement with these folks at a high level that said, hey, we're gonna take over the assets and ownership of Swoveralls. We're gonna keep you in charge of running the brand because you know what you're doing. One, I was thinking about existing in future Swoveralls customers. There are over 4,000 people out there in the world who have 6 or more pairs of Swoveralls. And wow. It's incredible to me, and I just feel like I owe it to those folks to make sure that Swoveralls continue to exist. New styles, we continue to get better. And the second thing, which is really important, is that Howie had already been in bed with these folks and said they're good people, they're reasonable, and it's gonna be a good decision. And so I sold 100% of Swoveralls, and I'm kind of back in 1099 contractor land, where I am the CEO and the founder, the chief Swoveralls officer, I guess is what I like to call myself. But and Swoveralls is in a much better place.
Wow. And does this now free your time to be doing other things as well now that you have support?
Yes. So and here is a new way to potentially think about starting an idea. In last year, in October of 2025, I ran the Chicago Marathon. And after the Chicago Marathon, I was sitting in Chicago Midway Airport waiting for my plane, and I had my feet up almost vertically on a wall. And I was doing that because I had been told by physical therapists that elevating your feet at an angle, it can have the same, if not better, recovery and pain relief than using $1,000 Normatec recovery compression boots. And so I always try to get my feet up after a hard workout. I posted a video of me, an Instagram reel. It went viral. I think it has over 400,000 views. And I thought, let me see if there is a product out there, a leg bolster designed for runners and triathletes. Doesn't look like there is one right now. And so if you're listening to this and you want to try and beat me to market for this product, please. I think the waters are warm. And so I'm now saying, before with Swoveralls, people are searching for this thing that doesn't exist. Now it's, I went viral talking about something that doesn't exist. I should, I've already created the go-to-market assets. Now I just need to create the product. And so the company is called Tilt Recovery Co. And I have one prototype. I wish I had it behind me. I have a styrofoam foam bolster that you put your legs up on, and I wanna launch that. I'm gonna launch that.
I can't wait to see it. That sounds great. And that will sit in your portfolio among the other opportunities you said with the family office. And am I correct, also a marketing agency that you're involved in running, and a community for endurance athletes? Did I get the pie correct?
Yes. So Keep the Pace Run Club, which was born out of Sweat from Home, is a virtual training, triathlon and marathon training company that me and my two friends, husband and wife duo, Bethany and Alex, run. We all run that.
Wonderful. Do you feel like you have time to add something else, or you're at capacity now with that combination?
I'm at 98% capacity, and so for me, and I've said this before to a couple folks, I think that I'm actually at my best when I'm at like 110% of capacity.
That was Kyle Bergman talking about his journey building Swoveralls. Here are my 3 favorite takeaways from that episode. First is about side hustle savvy. At all points, Kyle had a very full portfolio of multiple projects, jobs, and opportunities. This had a few benefits for him. First, he was able to pay his bills with his side hustles, so he didn't need to take money out of the company that he was building and could continue to reinvest his earnings there. And then all of his side hustles filled his cup in different ways. For example, being a group instructor for fitness scratched an itch of wanting to perform and inspire. And it might be too much for any of us to ask of one opportunity to give us everything that we need to feel complete and whole. Sometimes it takes a portfolio. And the third benefit of these side hustles was that having many opportunities going gave him leverage when he was considering new things. Every new thing he said yes to needed to bump out something that was existing. Turns out Kyle also only has 24 hours in a day. So new things needed to clear the bar of being better than the status quo. Consider the alternative. When you don't have anything else going on, you might act from a place of desperation as opposed to leverage. Second, it's about idea abundance. Kyle is clearly a man of many ideas, and he is confident in his ability to generate exciting new ideas at any point. That means he's not afraid to fail, because if one idea doesn't work, he knows there's another one right around the corner. It's a very powerful philosophy. Lastly, I enjoyed hearing about how Kyle marries intuition and analytics when evaluating new business ideas and how this has evolved for him over time. When he started Swoveralls, he said, I think this is a cool idea. I see some data on Google Keyword Planner that I think validates the idea, and I believe in myself to make it work. With 2 decades of entrepreneurial experience behind him, he has a more refined lens on what data he looks to when evaluating new ideas and how much weight he puts on this data in his decision-making process. Like that story he shared about testing customer acquisition costs as a data point in his decision-making. Something he learned is a more critical indicator of potential success than that keyword planner data he was using previously. Intuition and analytics will always live side by side as we make decisions, but how we leverage those evolves with our experience. This is Dana Moriello, and I can't wait to see you next week on This Is a Thing.